Guys, discussion off the back of yesterday with developers. We deal with all spectrum of developers, big developers, little developers, and often we're educating them on our market. Depth of market was a topic we had yesterday to talk about our area. It applies to all areas. You've got to know what this means because it makes you money. Depth of market. Stay tuned.
I'm the ringleader, so listen up.
Welcome to Morning Minutes. Myself, Michael Burgio and Mark Novak. Episode 1454, jamming in the background. Depth of market is the topic today. I think it's a really important topic, and as Mark said in the intro, it applies to every suburb. And what we're referring to when we're talking about depth of market, and especially when it comes to developers, is the amount of, let's say, units that suburb can sell each month, month to month. And where this is very important, for example, if you've got a suburb where you're typically selling 3 units a month, and then you have a developer who's building a 40 unit development, and their idea is, oh, we'll just sell them at the end. That's going to be very difficult when the uptake per month is normally 3, and you're going to try and expect to sell 40. So depth of market is very important. Mark, take it away.
Yeah, I think if you want to, I liken it to bananas, and like if your family's eating 5 bananas a week and you're ordering 5 bananas a week, and suddenly 50 bananas turn up to your family to in the shop, and they're really really cheap, would you buy them? The answer is probably no, because you're thinking to yourself, well, I have no need for 50 bananas. It works like that for property on a massive scale. If you look at DY, for instance, we may trade 550 units which is bigger than Sydney CBD. In a
It's massive.
typical year, 550 units would trade. Now, what happens when a Meriton comes along with 360 units and simply wants to sell them in that year? There's not enough depth of market. Doesn't matter how well you discount those products, it just won't sell at a decent price when you with discounting. There just won't be that take up because there's not that depth of market. So say it's 550 units a year, that's maybe 45 units a month. If you're trying to sell your 360 units, you've just got to accept that you're probably going to do 10 a month, but you're not going to be doing 50 a month. You're not doubling the volume into that marketplace.
And this is very important. Like DY is really a great suburb for developments because that depth of market is massive. Like we're looking at other developments in Monavale, Narrabeen, where there is only single digit apartments selling per month, and some
Yes.
developers looking to do the bigger developments because it's always that catch 22. Rule of thumb is you get more for your property once a buyer can walk through it once the development is built. But
Sure.
if the depth of market is single digits and you have a large volume, same with your banana example, you're only gonna if the family only needs 5, you might be able to entice them to buy 8 if you're giving them a discount. But if you need to get rid of 50, it's not going to work. So therefore, you have to stage the selling through before the building has started, during construction, and then at the end as well. Which why it's very important.
Stage and discount. Stage and
Yeah.
discount. People simply don't need. So whether the existing stock gets discounted or the new stock gets discounted in the marketplace, there's going to be discounting when there's more stock being dropped into suburbs. Fact.
Yeah, and that's like what we say to developers. There's like a price list, but then there's a selling stage and a selling price list as well. There's some units you want to sell sooner rather than later, and then we all know there's some of those hero units in every development. They may have the great view, they may have the great courtyard, the access. They tend to be ones. If you've only got 10 to sell at the end, then you want to make them your best 10, which is very important.
And people think it's the amount of units in that suburb. So they're going, oh my God, I've got 1,000 units in my suburb, and now there's going to be 2,000 units over the next couple of years. I'm actually not that concerned with the extra 1,000 units coming into the suburb. I would be more concerned as a developer, and I would be more concerned as a landowner and a buyer on that flow hitting the market, which is what we're talking about today, that depth of market. That's what I'd be concerned with. Because you can see now that once Meriton DY has gone in, has locked in, everyone's moved in, it's the market's really stabilized, and those are shit hot expensive units now because you just can't get one in there anymore. So there's the fact that there's more units in DY doesn't really matter, but the fact of when they were dropping that supply into the market, that's what you really got to watch out for, guys.
And I think if you have a second-hand apartment, a lot of the time when there's new stock on the market, it actually works in your favor, especially with build cost and everything being so expensive. Like, let's face it, these new apartments are the cream of the crop, are the most expensive in each asset class. And a lot of the time, it can make a buyer take a step back and go, oh, okay, I'll buy secondhand. That looks like more value. And when they can see, let's say for a one-bedroom, a new one comes out at $1 million and you were at 800, there's 200 grand of growth there as well, and fluctuation, where if that 1 million new property wasn't on, creating that glass ceiling for buyers, they may think 850 is too much, 820, 880 is too much to pay for your property. But when they see $1 million over there, they go, well, if you get in a bit of a bidding war or the price goes up, they're okay with it because it's still better than the next option. So a lot of the time it can work in your favor, selling secondhand alongside brand new.
So how would you make money out of depth of market now that we explained depth of market? What's an example where we'd make money from, where a buyer would make money from that?
And this is what I said, the great thing I said before we got on air.
Great.
The knowing the depth of market can have more of an influence than the market on the price of your property. And I had this with my brother. I was chatting to him about, he's got one of those duplex houses, which is single level. He's got the front and backyard. And then a 2-bedroom upstairs owned separately. But effectively, he's got that single house level feel. So a buyer who's looking at his property is also looking at single level homes. Now, with depth of market, if there is 10 single level homes who aren't duplexes on the market, then that's going to impact him more, because that single level home buyer will choose a property that doesn't have an external property upstairs. But if you can pick the market when there's one or no other single level homes on the market, and all those single level buyers are going to be looking at yours, that could create some competition with buyers and have a bigger influence on the price. Knowing the market, knowing when's a good time and a bad time, or when it is saturated, because we see a consistent amount of people looking to buy throughout the month. So just like you said, there may be 45 properties selling a month. There may only be 55 buyers. So there is that curve where there's almost too many properties on the market, and buyers have that bidding war, like they're pitting properties against each other because they've got so much choice. And then there's selection. Exactly. So I think it's recognizing what else is on the market, and knowing a lot of the time the buyer doesn't need to do this, but it's up to the agent, but not the buyer, the seller doesn't need to do this. It's the agent doing it for you. But as a buyer, you should be, because a lot of the time you're representing yourself, you should be aware of this as well.
And I guess it works for the rental market as well. Depth of market applies to the rental market.
We see it all the time in the boarding house, in the studio apartment game, where we have a block of 30 studio apartments. When we only have one come up for lease, we get a hero price. Let's say it's $450. But when we have 3 of them, we're likely renting them for $400, $425, because there's only a certain amount of people, and you don't want it having empty on a extended time period.
Did you see that what I sent you about watches on Rolex watches when you go into their shop and they don't have any for sale?
Yes, it's one of the weirdest things in the market, and you wonder how they in business. but it just shows our society loves the fluff.
Scarcity, and is that depth of market?
They're controlling depth of market, yes, they're controlling it.
So,
It's hard.
guys and girls, you can find this on Insta. It's really interesting to watch. There's a guy that goes all around the world and walks into all of the Rolex stores, and says, "I want to buy a Rolex," and every single person behind the counter says, don't have anything. I don't have that for sale. I don't have this for sale. I don't have that for sale. That's a really hard one to get. That's a limited collection, and they never have what he wants all around the world. And for what he asked for, so they're almost controlling that depth of market. It's not like you want one of those. We've got 20 here today. Have the 19th of 20 watch. It's like scarcity. So depth of market is very, very important. If you've got too much, you're gonna tank your market as badly, as well as a seller.
It's amazing. I think in that clip, it's like Rolex made 1.3 million watches, and then you got this guy walking into every store trying to buy one, not being able to. He's like, well, how did they sell these? Or they sold 1.3 million. He's like, how? To who? If it was any other company, you'd think it's some type of bloody Ponzi scheme or money
Yeah.
laundering. Or maybe it is.
Yeah,
On the big
it's that thing. But you can benefit from it. I think that you know what? I think that, Michael, that's what you call off the plan buying, or
Mm.
off the plan value.
Yeah.
I think that's where you're getting value with off the plan. If you're buying into a suburb where there's scarcity of stock, and suddenly there's a new building, and then after that is scarcity of stock again, that's when you're actually getting discounted stock when you're buying off
Yeah.
the plan, because there's too many of those stock coming on the market. You buy one cheaper because they're discounting. Then when you go to sell it, there's none of them on the market. You get a bump. I call it the banana bump. But we saw it in Jubilee in Warriewood. We got, for the exact same town, exact same warehouse, we got 150,000 more. So we had like 8 for sale. They're all like 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, all sold out except for one more. The one more that we had went for 125, went
Yeah.
for the 150 grand more a couple of weeks later, and it was like, what the hell happened there?
Yeah. And it's like that's where, depth of market can influence pricing more than the market.
There you go. Well,
Indy on that.
have a great day, Mr. Burgio.
You too, Mr. Novak.
All right, depth of market. Hope they help you guys out there. Love ya. See ya. Bye.